It's pretty weird being back in front of the camera like this. I think it's been a really long time since I've done a video like this and not like something while traveling. So bear with me if I mess up more than usual, but I feel like I usually mess up, so that's okay. This is a very long overdue video. I cannot believe I have not talked about what I've actually read in over 4 months now. But I'm only gonna be covering 3 out of those 4. So I think this is the longest I've gone without like reading wrap-up updates. So hopefully this is not a normal occurrence, but we're covering Q3, guys. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Melanie and we are here for a long overdue reading wrap-up video. We are covering 3 months, July, August, and September. Surprisingly, I don't have like too many to get through. I've been a little slow in my reading the past few months. There's just been so much going on. I've been traveling, I had weddings, and work's been crazy, so I just haven't been able to read at my normal cadence, but I don't know, this might be my normal cadence moving forward. We'll see. I think it just depends on the month and what I'm reading. So I have 15 books to talk about plus a DNF. Soft DNF, probably hard DNF, but we'll get there when we get there. But I will start off just chronologically because that's the easiest, and we're starting off with kind of a crazy one. So it's been a long time since I've read these books, so please don't hate me if I like don't remember exactly what happened or how I felt about them. I put notes for some of them, but not all of them, unfortunately. So previous Melanie didn't really help me out here. But the first book I read in July is not necessarily a book, but it is a fan fiction, and it's a very popular fan fiction that has recently been turned into a traditionally published book, which, yes, I know there's a lot of them out there right now, but this I would say is probably the most well-known one. And yes, that is Manacled by SenLinYu. I wasn't sure if or how I would talk about this book because I know there's obviously a lot of issues surrounding talking about anything related to Harry Potter or J.K. Rowling, which very understandably so. So I'm going to try to talk about it without really emphasizing that world and author, but it is related to it, so it's hard not to. But I will say I can't like technically recommend this book to read because there's now a new published book in the same realm with the same story, I believe, which I have yet to read, but I would recommend reading that one and just kind of skipping this one now that that is available. But do what you want to do, you know. I'm not the book police, fanfiction police, but this is not the first fanfiction I read. I don't know what I read. It was on Wattpad. It was the sequel to a book that was then published, but it was originally started on Wattpad. So I don't know if it was actually a fanfiction like based on anything, but I have read something on a website also. So I got this via a PDF I found somewhere. So it was free to read. Obviously it is a fan fiction, but I will say I had a really great time reading this. It is not what I expected from a fan fiction. The writing was a lot better than I had ever expected it to be, and that doesn't include like, you know, random typos, because like that happens in normal books too, and yeah, it's annoying, but like that's not what I'm basing my opinion off of, like in terms of the writing. But this is like a over 1,000-page PDF document. There is a lot of spacing between lines, so it's not like a full like page of text every full like 8 by 11 page. So I'll call that out, but it still is a lot to read. And I read it in 7 days, which is kind of crazy to me, but I ate it up. It had been a while since I had read any like romantic-y type books, I think, so I was just like excited to read that. This is definitely on the darker side. Like, other than the first series I told you it was based off of, it is also partnered with Handmaid's Tale, and that piece was a lot more like actual pulled from Handmaid's Tale than I was expecting it to be, rather than influenced by it. So that was a bit of a surprise there, and that honestly wasn't like the best part about the book. Like, I could have done without that piece. But having watched, I haven't read Handmaid's Tale, but I've watched the series. Having watched Handmaid's Tale, like I guess I knew what was going on, but I'm curious to see what people who haven't watched that would think of it. So that was kind of a harder part for me to get into in the beginning, because it's a lot more prevalent in the beginning. And so this is kind of an alternate reality to what happened if you know who had won the war instead, and what happens in the aftermath of that. But we also get a lot of scenes that happen during the war. And so that is a piece that didn't exist before. And so I think she did a really good job with the world building. Like that was definitely like the strongest part of the book, is not kind of continuing the world, but making it into something different. Like it still felt like the source material, but also not at the same time. So I didn't really compare the two directly. It was kind of just a very different story to me, and also the character development was very different and interesting, and so they're not like what you would expect them to be like going into this book. So I would say like it is obviously in the same world, but it is very different. But I was really happy with how she chose to alter the characters in a way, or like obviously the story influences how they change, but their character arcs and dynamics were, I think, really compelling. So I really enjoyed it. And the romance part, like, it was fun. I had a good time. Obviously, it's very dark. Not all of it, but I don't really want to ruin the structure of it for those of you that want to read Alchemized. I don't know if that is the same structure. I would assume so. I don't think she's changed that much for Alchemized, so I'm just gonna go with it off of that. But there is a very specific structure, and so it's hard not to talk about it without saying what that is. But the first and last part are a lot darker, but also the middle, but in a different way, I would say. But I am just overall like very curious to see how I'll feel about Alchemized having read Manacled before, if it will make me like it more, if it will make me like it less, or if I'll just be comparing the two the whole time, which I hope I'm not gonna do. But I guess that's kind of hard because, you know, one is based on the other. So we'll see. I'll keep you posted because I do plan on reading it at some point, but it's even longer. So Alchemized is even longer, so I don't know if I'll be able to read it as quickly as I did before. And I also only have like a hardback copy, which is like, that's massive to hold in your hands and read for so long. So we'll see what I can do. But I did also convince my IRL book club friends to read it as well, just because I know they were big fans of the series, of the original series, and so I wanted to get their opinion, as I am more a fan of the movies than the books. I hadn't read the books at all, but I will call out, to be fair, I do own the movies from a very long time ago, like digital version, so I don't stream it at all when I rewatch it. And we watched the series last year, I think the last time, so no additional money is technically going to her at the moment. But I also understand that even me talking about this book could potentially bring up hype around the series again, which I understand, but it's also something I did read, so I did want to share that with you. And I feel like the way I'm talking about this is super cryptic and weird, but oh well, that's how I'm gonna do it. So moving on to the second book I read in September. This was another IRL book club book that we all read together, and that is Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. This was an interesting one. So I had been really excited when I learned about this book, just because I love weird women that like are kind of like, and especially that are like in love with weird things. And so this book is about a woman who is obsessed with planes and in love with them, and she's trying to find her plane soulmate, and she'll know it's her soulmate if she dies in a plane crash with it, ultimately marrying the plane. So you can expect she's a weird one and a little crazy, and mentally unwell, but we love her. So this book, I thought it was weird, but I also was expecting it to be a lot more weird. And I think what made it less weird for me is that the fact that there was a like human man as a love interest at one point. It's not really a spoiler, and he's not really a love interest. I don't know how to explain it, but he's there versus it just being planes. So I don't know, I kind of wish it just went a little more batshit crazy. It was also like a lot about friendship and like her relationship with her best friend, and also like their dynamic with like her keeping the secret, but also her friend having like another friend group that she's trying to fit into as well. So it was a lot about friendship and like what it means to be a good friend, I think, on both sides. That was also really nice. Like I really liked how it ended. And yeah, I think I just wanted it to be weirder because of the like context, which it was, but I don't know. Didn't really like hit the nail on the head for me as I thought it would, but also like as someone who reads a lot of weird books, maybe I'm jaded at this point, and to other people this is probably extremely weird, and I don't know how you could get any weirder. So keep that in mind if you're not typically like a weird girl lit person. But the ending was exactly what I was hoping for it to be. If it hadn't ended that way, I would have been very upset. And would have probably not liked this book, but it ended up in the way that made me feel satisfied enough. And so I think I originally gave this book 4.5 stars, but I think I'm gonna bring it down to a 4. After looking at it in hindsight, a few months have passed, I don't think it's a 4.5, but I think a 4 makes sense for this one. The next book I read is also a weird book that I've had on my list for a long time, and then I saw Caitlin at Spill the Reads finally read it, and so I was like, okay, I should just read it, and it's really short, and that is Walking Practice by Dolki Min. This is a Korean author. I don't think we know their identity, but it's basically a book about an alien who comes to Earth that can shapeshift and is trying to find their place in the world. So it's a lot about being human, loneliness, sexual expression, gender expression, and it was really interesting, especially coming from a Korean author. So I assume this was pretty subversive when it came out in Korea at first, because it talks about a lot of topics that are taboo still in Korean culture, and it's also just really kind of gross. Like just the way the alien is described, and also like everything, it's very gross and very gory. Like the alien eats people also to survive, so like you can imagine like there's a lot of gory scenes. But honestly, like I was so surprised that this book was more about like the heart and commentary on society and like fitting in when you don't feel like you fit in also. And so that was a really good surprise. So you kind of get a little bit of everything with this one. So I did give this one 4.5 stars. I don't entirely remember exactly how it ended, so I can't speak to that because I read it in like 2 days and it's a quick read. So very weird, but it was a interesting one, and says a lot for a weird book. Next, I read a book from a series, or it's kind of a prequel to a series that I really enjoyed and read a long time ago, but I have been putting this off for so long, so was so happy that I finally just decided to do it, and that is Her Radiant Curse by Elizabeth Lim. This is part of the Six Crimson Cranes world. I loved Six Crimson Cranes when I read it, but the second book fell a little flat for me. Still really loved the world and the character and Elizabeth Lim's writing, so I was kind of cautious to pick this up. Didn't have like super high expectations, but wow, I'm so glad I did. This was her third book, I think, so she had time to develop as a writer, and I absolutely fell in love with her writing again. And the story, this is like a YA series / story, so not like there's like no, not really romance or anything. Like, it's very much just about like fantasy YA in the world she set for Six Crimson Cranes, which was a really interesting world and I really enjoyed it. And so I was not expecting to like this much because I haven't read a lot of YA more recently, but it was such a great story. The characters were so well done, though I will call out, I did part of this via audiobook, like on my commute, and the audiobook author wasn't great. Like, it was mainly like the way she decided to depict one of the characters was really annoying. And so that was hard to get through at once, but like once I got over it, like it was fine. But it kind of made me not like that character a lot more than I probably would have if I had read it, the whole thing physically. But I think this story was incredibly well told. I don't know, I'm like curious if I would recommend to read this before reading Six Crimson Cranes or not. I think you could easily. I don't think it spoils anything, but it gives a lot of context in that. So yeah, I don't know. I'm very curious if someone has read this before Six Crimson Cranes, like let me know what your experience was like, because obviously I'll never know, but it was really good. So let me just tell you what this book is about. So we're following sisters who, growing up, one was viewed as a very beautiful sister who had the gift of light and God, and then the other sister was cursed to look like a snake, who then everyone in the village thinks is a monster, so she's kind of hidden away. Meanwhile, her sister gets all the limelight, and so her sister, in trying to find a husband, puts on this contest to win her hand. Their names are Chani and Vanna. Vanna is the beautiful one, Chani is the one that looks like a snake, and so Chani comes to save her sister from one of the suitors who she doesn't think is right for her, and a kind of battle ensues and this big quest and journey happens. I don't really know how to explain like how that happened, but there's this also like evil kind of god who looks like a tiger, who is the one that cursed Chani in the beginning, that they're also fighting against. So it's all a big conspiracy basically. And so Chani's basically trying to save Vanna's life. Also, when they were younger, they were told that one had to die for the other one to shine. So the whole time Chani is trying to prevent Vanna from becoming the one who dies. I don't think I explained that properly, but also I did read this like 3 months ago, so don't blame me. I did give this 4.5 stars, and I actually went on to read her newest book, also set in the same world but different like series, like different plot and different characters, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But very much a fan of Elizabeth Lim's writing. The next book I read in July was Beneath the Sugar Sky by Seanan Mcquire, which is part of the Wayward Children series. It's book 3. I had read book 2 first, and then book 1, and then book 3. So read them in a weird order, but to me it didn't really matter the order. It kind of, for the first 2 books, like you can choose which one you want to read first, because it works both ways, though you do get a bit of a spoiler for book 1 if you read book 2 first, but that didn't really bother me at all. But Beneath the Sugar Sky is a book that centers around a girl named Cora who has like issues with being fat shamed her whole life, and is brought back from a portal world. She was a really great swimmer, and like it was a water world, so I think she was like a mermaid or something in that world, but she comes back to Eleanor's house for wayward children. I think that's the name of the place, and obviously all of the kids there are looking to get back to their portal worlds where they feel like they belong more, and then this random thing happens and this person comes out of nowhere and takes them on a quest. I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm gonna say this was my least favorite so far of all of the books I've read. Very like Candyland coded. So the world we visit in this one, so there's basically like logic versus nonsense worlds in this series. This is a very much a nonsense world, so it's like full of candy and stuff, hence Beneath the Sugar Sky. And it was just, the stakes were low. The point of everything didn't make sense. Kind of the whole plot didn't really make sense. Maybe because it was supposed to be a nonsense world, this book felt like a little bit of a nonsensical story. I don't know if that was intentional. And like the main topic or theme around like her being overweight or feeling like people are judging her because of that didn't really come across well in the story. I don't think it was talked about well enough and wasn't really expressing what it was trying to express properly. So yeah, this one was a bit of a letdown, but it wasn't awful. I gave it 3 stars. Probably could be a 2.5, but I would say maybe you can skip this one. I don't know. We'll see if this is like the last one that was on Kindle Unlimited, so I have to go and buy the rest of the ones if I want to keep reading the series. I think there's like 10 books total, so if I continue I'll let you know if this is one you can skip, but I think it is because I think it's kind of separate from the main plot of the first 2 books. But each one of them I feel like can be read as a standalone in a way, so we'll see. But yeah, not super great. And also the last book I read in July was also not a huge fan of, and that is Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. This is the second book by Ottessa that I've read. I read My Year of Rest and Relaxation by her, and this one was just like not at all what I was expecting. I think this was her debut novel, and I don't think she had like found her voice yet. Also, I've only read one other book and it's just like completely different from this one, so I have to read more to understand what her writing style and like what the topics she likes to talk about is. But this was like pretty boring, honestly. We follow a girl named Eileen who lives with her like shitty alcoholic father. She works in a prison and then like meets this girl Rebecca who starts working in the prison, and there's like weird like competition, but then they become friends, and it's just like in a snowy New England town, and I don't know, I just didn't do it for me. I was expecting a little more like humor, I would say, but it's pretty just dark and like messed up, and like the main character is like really fucked up, and there were some themes that I was like not a fan of in here, so read trigger warnings for this. Like, I don't want to like spoil it. I feel like it's not really a spoiler, but I'm not going to say exactly what it is, but if you know, you know, surrounding young boys. But oh yeah, the place she works at isn't necessarily a prison, it's like a youth detention center for boys. So yeah, that's where the young boys comes into play. And it was boring, but not like super boring that like I couldn't finish it, but just not what I was expecting, and it just wasn't for me. I don't think it wasn't badly written either. I just don't think this one was for me, and so I gave this one 3 stars. Also probably think it could be 2.5 stars. You know, I'm really bad at giving less than 3 stars, or I'm even really bad at giving 3 stars. It's a problem of mine, but yeah, this one I think you can leave. Like, I don't think it's a necessary read from her. I definitely think My Year of Rest and Relaxation was really fun, and I really enjoyed that one, so try that one maybe. Okay, now we've made it to August, and I only read 4 books in August, so this will be short, hopefully. But the first book I read ended up being a buddy read with Chelsea from Libraries and Lattes. We didn't plan on this in advance, but it had just come out and I went to go buy it on the release day because I was so excited for it, and I knew she was excited for it too. So I was like, we want to read it together, why not? Like, and so we kind of waited a little bit until she got her hands on it. And that is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandanna. This was so fun and exactly what I needed in the moment. She also wrote A Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which I read last year or 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. Yeah, because this was supposed to come out last year, I think, and it took another year for it to come out, I think. Unless it was supposed to come out earlier this year. I don't remember when I did. No, it was 2 years ago. I did read that. Okay. This has been on my list for a long time, just waiting for it to come out. It's like a cozy, like romantic fantasy, light fantasy. It's set in the real world in England. And this one is about Sarah Swan, who, when she is younger, does something to lose her magic. And so she grows up in this little inn with her aunt and some quirky people that basically live at the inn. It's like a bed and breakfast. And the inn itself is also a little magical. There's also a talking fox as a little friend. And so one day a young man and his sister come and show up to the inn, and they are originally part of the magic world that she has left for a very long time. So things get interesting there and cute and fun, and I had an amazing time with this. So I gave this 5 stars. I had a blast. It was everything I wanted it to be. It had been so long since I had read Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, and I also read that in a day, I think, when I was stuck in a tiny river cruise room with my mom who had COVID, and I was stressing and trying to escape. So hoping I wouldn't get COVID from her, which I didn't. I got RSV from like the people in Europe because no one covered their mouths while coughing while I was there. And so that was fun, but I really liked this more than that one, and I gave that one 5 stars too, so it's not saying that one was bad, but I think I liked this one a lot more. Just the story, not a lot more, but the story was more up my alley, and like the fall vibes were immaculate, and I love like a quirky magical house. Like that is just a big plus for me, and I really liked the relationship dynamic in this. Definitely highly recommend for cozy fall vibes. It is so fun and good for if you want a little romance kick, but it's not like overpoweringly romance. So yeah, great time. The next book I read is the start of N.K. Jemisin's first trilogy, and that is 100,000 Kingdoms. And this is part of the Inheritance trilogy. This came before the Broken Earth trilogy. And so I wanted to try this out, and this was very different than I thought it would be. I don't even know how to explain this plot. It's very N.K. Jemisin. Like there's a lot of like race differences and like racism and classism and stuff. Like she has that in like all of her books, I think. So her world building is like really unique and rich, and I always love it. But I don't know how to explain it. So Yena is our main character, and she is summoned to the city of Sky, which is kind of where like the elite family who rules this area lives. They're like magic users and stuff. And so Yena is like a descendant of this family, and so she is named heir, but there's 2 other heirs that are potential. So there's this like fight for who will be the new ruler of this kingdom, or of the 100,000 kingdoms. And there's also these like ancient gods at play that are like hiding within this city, and are kind of being controlled by this family. I don't know how to explain it, but that's kind of the gist of it. The structure is very interesting. I think this is when she, like her intro into playing with structure and chronological orders. And so it was interesting to read this because I don't think it like fully was where it landed for Broken Earth trilogy, but I think this is where like you could see where she started and planted those seeds in order to get there. So the one thing I will say, this reads kind of like a romantic fantasy, but it's not, and I don't know how to explain why, but it like kind of is. And it's, I don't know, it got really sexual very quickly, and our main character is 17, which I know is not like a child, but still like a teen. And so it was just kind of weird. And I think the way they wrote Yena, like she's written as like a full-fledged adult. Like she doesn't seem like a 17-year-old, so maybe that's why, but like she's still technically 17. So that was kind of weird. I feel like she should have just been an adult. Like, I don't think it would have made a difference to the plot. So that was a choice. Like, it's a very confusing, weird structure, and I really like those. And like, the book's kind of insane, and I really, really enjoyed that aspect. I think because it was so insane and confusing, I don't really remember exactly what was going on or what was happening. But it also, I remember like gathering random bits of info as we went to kind of like put things together. And like the whole like sexual aspect, there's a reason for it. It was a bit jarring early on. I'll say that. I don't know, I don't really want to call this a romance, but like there is like some romance themes in it, but it's a bit off-putting. So I don't know if this is like her version of romance, because she doesn't really write romance ever. As far as I have read before, I haven't read everything she's written. It was really interesting to read this after Broken Earth trilogy. And I don't know, so there's 2 more books. The next one, I believe, starts like way in the future with different characters. So I don't know if I'm intrigued enough to like go that route after this one. But I'll keep you posted if I decide to. But I am kind of intrigued, so we'll see. And I did end up giving this, I think, I didn't rate it. So I should try to rate it now. I think I'll give it like 4 stars. I think that's pretty me rating for most books I read. But yeah, I don't think it was like a 4.5 or 5 stars, but I still enjoyed it a lot. The next book I read is The Unworthy by Augustina Bazterrica, and this is her second like full novel. She has Tender the Flesh before this, and then 19 Claws and a Blackbird, which I will talk about in a little bit. This is her newest book. It came out earlier this year, and it is different. I really enjoyed it. Like I did. I just don't know how I feel about it like as a whole. It's really creepy, really gross, and like fucked up, of course. And so we're basically in this like kind of dystopian world, post-apocalyptic world. Like, we're not entirely sure what this world is that we're in, but we are following, we don't know our like narrator's name, but they are in this convent, mysterious convent that is run by the Sacred Sisterhood. And so there's basically different ranks of people. There's the kind of new people or common people. I don't know. I don't remember like the like ranks of everyone. And then there's people that like become enlightened and like they either lose their eyes, their tongue, or their hearing, which like gives them divine something, like an ability to speak to God or something. And then there's this like, the chosen. Those are the chosen. Then there's like the enlightened ones that are like, once you become enlightened, you're like disappear and hidden away. And no one knows what happens when you become enlightened, but that is what everyone wants to become. And then there's this like head person, I forgot who was called. But basically there's the superior sister that is the one that's kind of running their day-to-day lives. And so they are put through the ringer. It is not a nice place to be. It is really messed up. The things that they put these girls through is messed up. And it's kind of a mystery adjacent of like trying to figure out like what is going on, like, or we're trying to figure out what's going on. So it's written in like journal entries, and it's really interestingly written and well done. I just don't know how I feel about it. So I think I gave this one 4 stars, and I don't really know how to talk about it, but I absolutely love Augustina Bazterrica's writing, and like the world she builds, like they're really messed up. Like, girl has an interesting mind, but I'm very curious to see what else she'll write next. So that's The Unworthy. And then the last book I read in August is A Forgery of Fate by Elizabeth Lim. So this is her newest book, and this is a standalone. So this was fun to read, and this is more focused in that world, but in the sea. We focus on a dragon lord. And so True, growing up, her dad gets lost at sea, and she, in order to take care of her family, becomes an art forger and makes money that way. And then she ends up in a dilemma where she has to agree to a marriage contract with a dragon lord that she doesn't know anything about, in order to get answers about her father's disappearance, as she's been looking for him ever since. And so there's a lot of palace politics and conflicts in the dragon world, and mysteries are being figured out. And yeah, I feel like I haven't like explained books I've read in a very long time, so I'm doing a really bad job of it. So I'm sorry. I will get better again, hopefully, but I don't think I was ever that good at it. So not sure why I started this channel, but I did. Once again, love her writing. This one was really fun. I really liked the romance in it. It's not like a ton of romance. Once again, like, I don't think Elizabeth Lim writes like heavily romantic books. I think this one is the most romance though out of her series. And the world is beautiful and fun, and I really liked the characters. This felt the most like a sea drama, I feel like. I've been like searching for that feeling in book form, and it's really hard to find. But the ending kind of sold it as like less of a sea drama, but I still really enjoyed it and I thought it was fun. But once again, this is like YA again, so if you're looking for like adult romance, this is not the book for you. But if you want some like really great world building and writing and fun like YA type events in fantasy worlds, this is a great pick. And just anything Elizabeth Lim I think would be great. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Okay, and on to September finally. So I started off the month with 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Basterrica. If you saw my Vancouver little vlog, you saw that I read it and finished it then. So that was fun. This is a short story collection. It is the only other thing she's written. So at this point, I've read everything that Augustina Basterrica has written, and I'm very happy about that because I love her writing. And this was so interesting and so different. The main theme of these stories is death, and like different parts of it and like different ways that you could interact with it. I don't know how to explain it, but very interesting themes, and all very like creepy and uncomfortable, but also like just really well done. I don't think any of the stories were bad. Like all of them were really interesting, I would say. And some are shorter than others, but I think the majority of them are pretty short. But it's 20 short stories that takes readers into their deepest fears and most disturbing fantasies. She's really good at writing disturbing stuff. And so like that's more of what this is. But I think just like the overall theme was really interesting to me, and I wasn't expecting a theme. I was just kind of expecting the stories to be like individual, whatever she felt like doing, but they all kind of felt like it made sense that they were in this collection together. So I gave this 5 stars. Like, I hadn't finished a short story collection in a long time, and this is the first one in a long time, I think, at least this year, I would say. I think the other one was Cursed Bunny by Bora Chung, but this was so interesting to read, and I kept wanting to read it. So very much a fan, and I think if you're curious about her writing and if you are interested in trying her out, definitely start here, because Tender is the Flesh and The Unworthy are pretty rough to start with in terms of the themes. But you know, you do you, whatever you think works for you. The next book I read, I did a whole reading vlog about, so I'm not going to talk about it a lot, but that is Calabasas by R.F. Kuang. I will link the reading vlog up here if you are curious to see it. I had a lot to say about this one, especially the discourse around it, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It's not my favorite R.F. Kuang book, but I really enjoyed it. I liked the world. I liked the dark academia aspects. I liked the academic aspects. I liked her writing. I think this landed more at like a 4.25. I don't usually do that, but it doesn't feel like a 4. It doesn't feel like a 4.5. So 4.25, I guess. But if you're curious my like full-on thoughts, please check out that reading vlog. The next book I read was a buddy read with Ellen at the Ellen Made Book Club, and that is Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. This is my second Chuck Palahniuk book. The first one I read was Survivor. Ellen had brought this up a lot, and I was like, I might as well try out another Chuck Palahniuk book. I don't remember the movie enough to like not enjoy reading this. I obviously remember the big twist, so it was interesting reading this book knowing that. But I don't think the book makes it as big of a twist as the movie does. So that was interesting to read. It's definitely hinted at a lot more in this one. And so this was really interesting to read. It's definitely, I think, a lot more commentary on like macho masculinity and that type of thing than the movie is. The movie, I feel like, glorifies it a little more. I have yet to like rewatch the movie though. I do want to do that soon so I can kind of compare the two, because I hadn't seen the movie in so long, so I don't remember what the movie was about even. But we'll see if it's close to what the book is about. But the writing, I remember, I think this is just how Chuck Palahniuk writes, but I remember being like kind of put off by his writing of the first book. Not that it was bad, it was just like the structure and like how he wrote was like so confusing to me, because it was like short and repetitive, and in this book it made so much sense. And I actually really enjoyed that aspect. Like, I think his writing is really interesting and unique, and it really worked for this. And also he had a afterword where he talked about his experience after the release of Fight Club and how like big of a thing it became, and how like he would get like letters from people and all, and like crazy things would happen. And so that was like really interesting, and also kind of emphasized the points he was trying to make in this book. So I thought that was really interesting to get, and I almost missed that because I don't always read afterwards. I really should. I will start now, because Ellen was like, did you read the afterword? And I was like, no. She's like, you should. So I did, and it was worth it. But like, wow. So really fun read. I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would, and so I gave this one 4.5 stars, and it's pretty short, so I recommend, honestly. Like, it's kind of crazy, but it was fun. Like, I had a good time. The next book I read is not necessarily a book, more like a kind of graphic novel comic book kind of thing, and that is Fangs by Sarah Anderson. This was so funny. I did not know what to think going into it. Like, I had no idea what it was about. I just know it's about like a werewolf and a vampire, and I, like, the first few pages was like laughing out loud. And it's definitely more like a comic book strip type thing, like really small short stories that all kind of connect into one longer story, but like they're like not stories, you know, they're like comic strips, if you know what I'm talking about. But the art was really pretty and so funny, and I really enjoyed it. I read it in like 20 minutes. It's really short. I'm trying to like show you the art without like this like flash. But yeah, it's so fun and so cute, and I want everyone to read it. It's just so fun, especially at this time of year. It was like exactly what I needed in that moment. I was just like floored by how fun it was, and how funny it is. So yeah, highly recommend if you want something like lighthearted that you can like go back to a lot. With some great art. And the last book that I read in September / beginning of October is Belladonna by Adeline Grace. This one I had been putting off for a long time, and finally decided to just read because Kat at the Cat Bite was talking about it, and I should just do it. You know, I was in the mood for a little more romantic-y type thing, and I wanted gothic vibes, and this book definitely gives you gothic vibes, like creepy gardens, creepy house, like ghosts in the hallway, weird sicknesses happening. So we follow Signa, whose parents die when she is a baby, and she gets taken to a few different places where they end up dying as well. So death kind of follows her around. And meanwhile, she does have like an actual weird connection with death itself. So this is where Shadow Daddy comes into play. She has this big fortune, so the people she ends up staying with or who become her guardians tend to want that fortune for themselves. And so when the last person she's with ends up dying, she gets sent to a uncle or something, someone's house, aunt or uncle's house. And it's this kind of big estate manor, like they have their own money, so she feels like they are not in it for the money. He has 2 kids. His wife had just died, and his daughter is very sick with the same illness his wife had. So he's a mess. He's throwing parties all night, not taking care of anything, and just, you know, letting his business run dry. And so there's some weird things happening behind closed doors. Signa tries to figure out how to save his daughter from the sickness, and figure out what's going on with this family because she wants to stay there. It's the best family she's been with so far. And so she befriends the stable guy, stable hand, who helps her try to figure out what's going on with this family and how her aunt died and why her cousin is also having the same sickness. And so there's a lot of things and mysteries to uncover, and it's very gothic and very fun, and there's some interesting romance there as well. So I had a great time. I do think the second quarter of the book slowed a lot down. Like it was harder for me to pick it up. But then I read like the second half of it like all at once on the plane, and that picked everything up. I will say I guessed one of the big twists like right from the beginning, so it was still fun to like, you know, be right about that, but I also like wish it wasn't that obvious, at least for me. But I still had a really good time. I'm very curious about the rest of the series and like how those go. I assume they're about like different people and not the same people, so very curious about that. But like for fall, like gothic vibes, and if you want a bit of romance, like this is a great choice. I don't think everyone will like it though, just because it's not like super fast paced, I will say. But if you're more in it for the vibes and like the mystery, then that is probably a good pick for you. So I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then lastly, this is a book that I ended up DNFing. It was going to be my pick for Canada for my Read Around the World challenge with female authors, and that is Monkey Beach by Eden Robinson. I just was bored, honestly, and it might have just been the time and place that I was like traveling for work, but I just could not get into it, and the structure of it was a little confusing, and I like weird structures, but it was kind of hard to tell where we were in the story or in time, and it just wasn't an interesting enough story for me to get into it. And I was like kind of promised magical realism, which there is a little bit, but also like not as much as I would want it to be, and it was just taking forever to get anywhere. So I think I read like 40 pages and stopped there. I don't know if I'll pick it up or just pick a different book for Canada, because I do want to like finish a whole book for the Read Around the World challenge. And so that is my one DNF. I think I've only had one other DNF this year, which is kind of crazy. So I guess good for me, but also I probably should DNF more. But maybe I'm just picking books that I really like, so that's good. So that wraps up this longer than I wanted to be video for my reading wrap up for Q3. I hope to not take this long to do this again, but hopefully you've been curious about what I've actually read versus what's been on my TBRs. Let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these or if you are interested to read any of these. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great day. Bye.